Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video I'm going to have the latest from the live radar, run for the latest UKV, have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days. It is going to be very variable as we head into this weekend and start of next week, with some rain and some thick cloud in places, pretty up and down temperatures, mid-20s at times, but equally some mid to low teens further northwards, so not particularly summery if we're being honest. It's pretty warm today, Friday, but most places are going to be average or even below average as we do progress into next week. But around the middle to end of next working week, things are all going to change, as there is very high confidence now that we do see hot air returning and another heat wave to come to our shores. We have seen some changes in the past few days, and the one thing we're picking up in today's model output is both potentially the severity increasing and the longevity, so a bit of a double whammy there, and there is a pretty high chance that the temperatures and the kind of heat wave we see in the middle third of July could exceed what we saw earlier this week and last week. And we have got one run today that we're going to look at in detail. It's the latest GFS, and my gosh, it is exceptional. It is the hottest run we've seen all summer and all year, and it potentially is one of the hottest runs I've ever seen, rivaling some of those runs we saw back in 2022, where of course we exceeded 40 degrees for the first time. Now this GFS run is bringing in the 20-degree isotherm for pretty much all of England and Wales. That is unheard of a few years ago, and it is bringing a large area of 38 to 40 degrees around the mid-teens of July, around 10 days' time. And yeah, could exceed the 40.3 degrees we saw 3 years ago. Now it is one run, but as we'll see from the ensembles, it has got quite a lot of support. It's on the hotter end, but it's by no means an outlier, which is actually a pretty worrying signal. It does mean that there is a real possibility that those sort of conditions could come off. Maybe it won't be 40 degrees, but even if it's only 37 or 38, still exceptionally oppressive and dangerous. We'll focus on that in the second half of the video. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, which do like and subscribe. Now you can see through Friday afternoon, we've got our changeable conditions at the moment. Quite a lot of rain, some of it quite heavy, especially across the Lake District up towards northwest England and across western Scotland. We've actually got a yellow warning for rain. It's not been updated since yesterday, so we won't cover it in this video, but do check that out again. We're looking at a couple of inches of rain of relief rainfall here for western hills and mountains of Scotland. Now this rain will slowly drift southwards and eastwards, but it will kind of lose its intensity and just generally be some thicker cloud into Saturday. So for those further southwards and eastwards, we're actually quite warm today, mid to high 20s in a few spots. It will be cooling down, and we will see bits and bobs of rain as we head into Saturday. I'm not expecting too much though, as this does all break apart. But again, it just exemplifies the changeable conditions that we are going to see over the coming days. Now, if you look at the temperatures, recording this around 5 p.m, you can see across central and eastern areas, it is quite warm, if not hot. Temperatures widely around 25 to 29 degrees. Well, very warm summer day. Nothing too special, but it's simply because we've got a brief southwesterly wind ahead of this weather front, just wafting in this warm air for a short period of time before it gets flushed away through Saturday. Now, if you go over to net weather, the top temperatures today from sort of 2 to 4 p.m, widely 26 to 29 degrees, so very pleasant, a good 4 or 5 degrees above average, and yeah, looking really nice out there. But as I said, it is all going to change tomorrow, as you can see here from the latest UKV. That rain moving in at the moment, and it will push southwards overnight, bringing some rain for southern England into Saturday morning. And you can see throughout Saturday some more persistent rain in the far southwest across the south coast, thicker cloud elsewhere, and a few showers further northwards. So again, a pretty changeable day, but not abysmal by any means. That continues into Sunday with more showers, maybe a few thunderstorms in the east there through Sunday morning, and just generally a showery regime through the rest of Sunday into Monday. From Monday afternoon, it does dry up, more sun, but still some cloud around, but it is a north to northwesterly wind, so it is dry, but it is pretty cool. Temperatures low 20s at best. Same could be said for Tuesday, where again, very changeable conditions, but it's from around Wednesday, Thursday onwards, that's when that wind direction starts to shift and that hot air starts to arrive. Now, if you look at the max temperature, see this afternoon, kind of 26 to 28 degrees, so pretty in line with our observations. Into Saturday, though, it is cooler again, top temperature maybe 22 to 24, so average, slightly above average in a few spots, but you can see many are struggling in the teens, so more average to below average. Into Sunday, similar conditions, maybe 23 degrees at best, but most are high teens, maybe just crossing the 20-degree marks. Again, not particularly great for early July. And for Monday, it's a similar story. So, yeah, really not great throughout the next few days. It's not abysmal by any means. There's no huge walls of rain arriving, and it's not cold, but by no means is it terribly warm. With that brisk wind, it is going to feel chilly, and you might need a jumper out there even during the afternoons. And finally, as we head into Tuesday, starts to warm up inevitably with that drying trend, maybe 24 to 26. So starting to increase there, and we would expect it to carry on towards the end of the week, as that's when the hot air starts to arrive. Now, do look at the latest GFS. The midday run is coming out as I'm recording this, but it's only out to kind of day 7 at the moment, so it doesn't really give us too much insight into the longer term. So we'll have a look at that incredible 6 o'clock run. Northerly winds into next week, very far the complete opposite from something hot, but the high pressure nudges back in later on next week, and it starts to encourage a southerly wind. We're already put in the upper air temperatures, and you can see the 15-degree isotherm is heading our way. That's kind of the threshold for heat wave level sort of temperatures. But then look what happens from around the 11th, 12th. Look at that. The 20-degree isotherm moves in for the 12th of July in 8 days' time. And look at that 20-degree isotherm covering pretty much all of England and Wales there towards the 13th of July for the 14th and the 15th before slowly gets nudged away. And it remains warm for the rest of the run, just not quite as oppressive. It's another huge heat dome across the British Isles. And look at the temperature deviation, 12 plus degrees above average, off the scale for a majority of France, all of England and Wales, moving into Scotland, Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. And if we do zoom in, you'll be able to see it is incredible with the top temperatures. Now, if we go all the way back to the 11th, so a week today, 33 to 34 degrees. Again, we put on the upper air temperatures. You start to the 15-degree isotherms in, starting to nudge up. The subsequent days, though, look at this. The 20-degree isotherm moves in, maybe the 21 or even 22-degree isotherm, and it looks ridiculous there. And you can see the 20-degree isotherm goes nowhere for about 3 or 4 days, out towards the 15th, 16th of July, before it starts to dissipate away. Again, if we go all the way back to the 11th and put on those surface temperatures, 33 or 34. As we progress into the 12th, you can see temperatures, just sorry for the ads popping up here, let's get rid of those. You can see getting up to 38 degrees. That's threatening our all-time temperature record pre-2022 in the first day or two of this heat wave. 13th, already 34 degrees, 35 degrees across the south coast by 9 a.m. And by the middle of the afternoon, 40 degrees being seen across parts of the Midlands. Not just an erroneous 40 degree, one 40 degree there, multiple 40 degrees being shown. Ridiculous temperatures there. Again, overnight temperatures hardly getting below the mid-20s. It will be ridiculous sleeping conditions. And again, by 9 a.m, 35 degrees. And again, into the afternoon, we are looking at 39 here, maybe not touching 40 degrees, but locally could get to 40. And you can see a similar pattern as we do progress towards the 15th of July. Again, looking at 36 or 37. The 16th, maybe 31 or 32, so cooling down. And by the 17th, we're into the mids to high 20s. So you can see here, multiple days, about 4 or 5, where we exceed 35 degrees, and about 2 or 3 of them 38 to 40 degrees. So similar scale to what we saw in 2022, perhaps more widespread and more long lasting. And of course, that 40 degrees we saw back in 2022 was in isolated areas across the East Midlands down towards London, that corridor there. However, this pattern was showing it not only across southern and eastern areas, but across Western England, the West Midlands, up towards Northern England as well. So it won't just be a slither that could see 38, 39, 40 degrees. This could be the whole of England and Wales could get up to those levels. If this did occur, we would be smashing temperature records, most likely in England and Wales, potentially Scotland, Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, depending on the extent of that air mass. Would be truly historic heatwave if this did occur, and probably would be pretty devastating. There would be probably quite significant infrastructure issues, and a lot of people would struggle in these sort of temperatures, especially those overnight temperatures. 35 degrees by 9 a.m, that is absurd. That is sort of the Middle East kind of temperatures. That's like being down in Dubai or Saudi Arabia. Those are the sort of temperatures, maybe not even that hot at 9 a.m. in those countries. So completely ridiculous here from the GFS. But given what we've seen over the past few years and what we'll see from the ensembles in a minute, there is some validity behind this. It's not just a bizarre off the ropes, kind of run. This is definitely got some real possibilities to it, which is, I must say, quite a scary thought. And considering, I was melting at 34, 35 we saw earlier this week, I can't imagine what it'd be for 40 degrees for 3, 4, 5 days on the trot. Now, if you do compare to the GM, this does support those heat wave conditions, maybe not quite to the extent of the GFS, but you see the high pressure builds in, and we do see that southerly wind there around the 13th, 14th, a bit of low pressure mixing in, so there could be some thunderstorms involved, but it's similar. It gets the 15 degree isotherm in, maybe not the 20 degree isotherm, but if we do zoom in, you can see it is still heat wave levels widely into the low 30s here. You can see that the afternoon temperatures up towards 31, 32 degrees for the 12th and into the 13th as well. So it would be very hot, this GM run, but it's low to mid 30s, similar extent to what we saw at the start of this week, similar sort of heat wave to that, nothing too much more severe, but nonetheless would still be very hot, oppressive, difficult sleeping, all the usual hazards. Just want to be dangerous and potentially historic, both in terms of the conditions and the statistics like we saw there from the GFS. And finally, for the longer range charts, if we look at the latest ECMWF again, high pressure nudging back in later on next week, and we do start to see those southerly winds pushing in. Again, similar to the GM, it's not quite as clear cut, so it wouldn't be as hot, and there is a bit more low pressure mixing in, so it brings the risk of more thunderstorms. But again, if we put on the upper air temperatures, you can see the 15 degree isotherm moves in for all. The 20 degree isotherm gets close and does just flirt with our shores, but doesn't push in like the GFS, so probably wouldn't be those high 30s, but low 30s would probably be seen here. And again, if we zoom in this scenario, just to, of course, cover all bases, you can see midday temperatures around the 13th, 30 degrees, again, would be higher around the middle of the afternoon, and you can see 31 there on the 14th, 33 on the 15th, and yeah, cooling down a little bit after that with those thunderstorms moving in. Now, we have had a look at that extreme GFS run, but I think the most striking chart today is the ensembles. Now look at these GFS ensembles. Next 5 days, hovering above and below average, and this of course is for London. It is going to be cooler further northwards. And then it's around the 10th of July we flip to above average, and every day you could see we increase in temperature. Not only are we seeing a hot air mass moving in, but we are seeing some homegrown heats, that air mass getting heated by the sun across our shores. And you see we go from 10 to 12 degrees at N50 HPA, which is mid to high 20s at the surface, up towards the 15 degree isotherm, maybe the 20 degree isotherm. And the scary thing is, if we look at that GFS operational run, yes, it is about 5-6 degrees above the ensemble mean, which isn't that much. And yes, it is the hottest run, but look how many are around it, just below, nearby. It is bad. I must say, it has got support. As I said earlier, it is a scary thought that was an extreme GFS run. And when we originally saw these GFS runs back in 2022, they were 5 degrees above any other run. They were way out there. I remember seeing runs about 10, 12 days before that heat arrived, and it was still extended range. And we've seen them way above the rest of the runs. This is same levels, but it has support, which is extraordinary, which just shows you the confidence there is within the models that this southerly wind will be arriving. It's just how hot will it be? around that 12th to 14th of July point. Again, it's coinciding with pretty much the hottest time of the year. The air masses around Europe and North Africa are at their hottest during mid-July, and of course we're not too far from the summer solstice, so we've got longer days, stronger sun. All could exacerbate the issue and produce some historically hot days. Could be the perfect storm of heat if these sort of runs did come off. There's about a third to a quarter runs here that would threaten the all-time temperature record and that extreme heat. If we do look at the 2 meter temperature, or pretty much the ensemble mean gets towards 30 degrees. That's why I said there's very high chance of a heat wave now. It's just how hot will it be? And you see quite a few up towards the 30 to 35 degree range, and you see operational run getting up towards the 40 degrees. You can't see it touching 40 degrees because the ensembles do 6-hour increments, so it looks like 6 a.m, midday, 6 p.m, so the peak would be around 3 or 4 p.m, and it would cool off by 6 p.m. That's why we see here getting up towards sort of 37, 38 there, not the 40, because that 40 would occur during the middle of the afternoon, not at these forecast points. But potentially ridiculous conditions coming in. Said hottest GFS run I've seen this year, potentially even as hot, if not hotter than some of those runs back to 2022. And finally, if we compare to the Eastern, we have to look at some cross-model consensus. Again, up and down over the next 5 or 6 days. Very strong chances here of another heat wave from the ensembles from Eastern WF. Not so many getting towards the 20 guys firm, which is positive news. There's maybe 5 to 10 that flirt with it. So still quite a few, maybe 20% get there, or at least peak at that point. Majority though around the 15 degree firm. So similar sort of heat we saw at the start of this week. 30, sort of low 30s. That's what we're seeing in this sort of scenario. So at the moment, from all of the runs and all of the ensembles, I think there is about a 90% chance we see a heat wave, i.e. temperatures exceeding heat wave thresholds for 3 consecutive days, which for London, where we've got the highest threshold, is 28 degrees. I think that's a very high chance now. And I think there is a kind of 75% chance, very strong possibility, that we get towards the similar levels we saw at the start of this week, so 30 to 34 degrees. And I must say there's a good 40, 50% chance of just looking at from these runs in isolation that we get towards the 35 to 38 degree range, which is bordering on exceptional heat for this country. And I think there is about a 25% chance potentially of those kind of runs that we've got that it could get up towards the 40 degree range once again. So we'll have to wait and see what does happen, but it definitely has been escalating over the past few days. And given this GFS run we've just seen, it'll be very interesting to see what occurs as we do progress towards the hottest portion of the year. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Do stay tuned as we'll be updating this for you every day as we head towards this heat wave and potentially historic heat wave. But we'll have to wait and see, some more runs before we can start to properly go in depth about those exact details. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. I'll see you again for another video soon.